Okay, in this presentation I'm going to be clarifying more on biblical servanthood, or being a bond servant or a manservant. What modern translations use the English word slave for. I've gotten many comments on my last video of slavery, regurgitating the same old vomit. It's like atheists watch an entire video, or in this case, listen. Sorry folks, my webcam is broke. They listen to my whole thing, or at least I hope they do, and they turn around and in the comments section, they regurgitate the same old vomit that I just got done explaining in detail and refuting with clear scripture. Now, first of all, if atheism were true, nothing would be wrong, including slavery, since all you would have is one random biological organism that appeared on a random rock owning another random biological organism without any objective standard condemning such a concept. However, the Bible actually condemns taking a free man and selling him. You see, slavery in the Bible was not forced, not the biblical slavery that God laid down the rules for, that he was in support of. The slavery that God is not in support of is what the Egyptians did to the Hebrews. That was true slavery as the United States had it. It was forced, not voluntary, and they were chained and worked almost to death, if not to death, whipped, beaten, and treated like animals. God does not support this, which is why God eventually raised Moses as his prophet to move in and come against the Pharaoh and eventually had the Hebrew slaves freed. Now, gee, Mr. Cosmic Skeptic, why would God go through all this hassle of freeing Hebrews from slavery under the ruling hand of the wicked Egyptians if he supported it? Hello, Cosmic Skeptic. Hello, Alex. Alex, your real name. Hey, Mr. Cosmic Skeptic, wake up, wake up. Oh my God. Cosmic Skeptic is a wet behind the ears, 19-year-old or whatever kid who is just now starting to learn what I learned before he was in diapers. I've been studying the Bible before he was ever a cell in his mother's womb. I have forgotten more about the Bible than what Cosmic Skeptic currently knows, which is next to nothing. Yet he puts out, dang it, I can't talk. Okay. Yet he puts out, there, I got it. Excuse me. This is a, man, it's a bad day for me. Hello. Yet he puts out these videos constantly, regurgitating vomit. You know why he puts out these videos, people, on slavery and all this crap? For shock value. Cosmic Skeptic, Aaron Rawl, the Atheist Experience, all these nut jobs, they have an agenda. What is their agenda? To bash the Bible, to bash God, to attack. Attack, attack, attack. Mock, insult, ridicule, character bash, rip apart, stomp on, run into the ground, anything in the Bible and anything that has to do with God and the Lord Jesus Christ. They are filled with hate. Atheism is hate and intolerance. That's all it is. And they think Donald Trump is dividing America. No, it's this kind of crap. Hate in its purest form. They don't care about truth. Cosmic Skeptic don't care about the truth. He doesn't care about to really learn the Bible in context. He doesn't care about none of this. He only wants to rip things out of context for shock value. Single verses entirely out of its historical and biblical context. So people go, oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, that's it. That's it. I'm leaving Christianity and coming to atheism. I am so appalled. Oh my God, wait till my friends see this verse. That's all Cosmic Skeptic does. Aaron Conman Raw and all the other ones. And the Nutty Experience, aka Atheism Experience. Yeah. After watching enough of these episodes, it's an experience, all right. It's an experience in bullshit. That's what it is. Pure 100% grain-fed bullshit. Shock value, folks. That's what they want. They want to stir an emotional response by focusing on the word slave, which is an English word, and forgetting that the Bible was written in Hebrew. Hello? Hebrew. Anybody home, Mr. Raw? Atheist Experience, Cosmic Skeptic, anybody home at all? It was not written in English. Slave is an English word. Hello? Wake the hell up, somebody. Slave is an English word. In English, it does carry all kinds of horrible meanings because it stems from the slavery we had in the United States of America. Modern translators and their stupidity, why I don't even know, because they chose the word slave, which is an English word, people attach the English historical meaning to it based on the United States history. And all of that is a freaking fallacy and a huge error. When you see a word in the Bible to automatically assume that the meaning is what you know it as based on what happened in the United States. The Bible, atheists, was not written to tell us what happened in the United States. The Bible is based on an entirely different history. It has nothing to do with what you're basing it on, what happened in the United States. This has to do with the Hebrews, and it was written in Hebrew. And in Hebrew, if you're talking to a Hebrew, they'll know exactly what you mean by the word abed. A manservant, a bondservant, a servant, that's what it means. You will find literally nowhere in a Hebrew dictionary, quote, a man forced into slavery, beaten and whipped with no choice at all and treated like an animal. No, a Hebrew would think you were a freaking idiot if you said that's what an abed was from the Old Testament. In the context of where God supported it, that's not the definition. That's why the King James Version uses manservant or bondservant. Others just say servant. But unfortunately, yes, most modern translations will have the word slave. Again, it's an English word. It's not a slave, it's not a Hebrew word. If you were speaking to a Hebrew, you wouldn't be using the word slave. You would be using the word abed. And they know exactly what it meant in the biblical context of where God supported it. And exactly what it meant in the biblical context of where God did not support it, which was what the Egyptians did, and which is what God freed the Hebrews from, because he did not support it. That's why. God ain't going to free somebody from something he supports. He'll simply say, go ahead, Pharaoh, keep at it. I'm not going to free those people. After all, I support what you Egyptians are doing. So their first huge fallacy is ignoring the fact that God doesn't support it because he freed them from it. And he doesn't free people from things he does, from things he actually supports. But you see, you're not going to hear anything positive from Cosmic Skeptic to give things context, or Aaron Raw, or the atheist experience. They don't care about context. You're only going to hear cherry-picked negative. They cherry-pick only the things that are negative, so they can stir up a negative response. And these are the only quotations that you're going to hear. Cherry-picked quotations out of context to stir up shock value and a negative emotion response within people. Now, the Bible, as we were getting into, let's continue on. The Bible actually condemns taking a free man and selling him, which is what true U.S. slavery was about. Taking free men and forcing them against their will and treating them like animals, whipping them, and so on and so forth. You know the story. Exodus 21:16 says, quote, whoever steals someone to sell them as a slave or to keep them from their own, or to keep them for their own slave, okay, must be killed, close quote. Now, the reason is because biblical slavery or servanthood or manservant, what it really was, the kind that was supported, was voluntarily. It was voluntary. People sold themselves knowingly and willingly. We'll get into that here in a minute. But to take a free man against his will and force him, as they did in the United States of America, the punishment was the worst possible. The consequence was death. Are you going to hear this from Cosmic Skeptic? No. Are you going to hear this from Aaron Conman Raw? No. Are you going to hear this on the Atheist Experience? No. Why? Because it ruins their case. Because they're biased. They don't want their case ruined. Because they don't want the truth. They don't want to study. They don't want the context. They don't dare want to be proved wrong. And they are afraid they will. Because in reality they are. Because they want to keep the pot stirring. They want to keep the bullshit going. They want to keep the negative responses flowing. They want to keep people going, oh my God, look at that. They don't want truth. Not a damn one of them want the truth. Now, in fact, the kind of servanthood spoken of in the Bible that is unfortunately translated using our English word slave, This kind of slavery still exists in the United States of America today. How? Where? Now you're probably thinking, man, this Christian's nutty, man. He has lost his mind. This religious fanatic has done flipped. What is he talking about? And I wouldn't blame you for thinking of that. Okay, let me explain. The military is a perfect example of what biblical slavery was. The kind that was supported and regulated by God. It is a perfect example. When a person is struggling to survive, one option is he can join the military. That's what my dad did when he was struggling, when he was young. He couldn't make ends meet, didn't know where to go, about to lose the roof over his head. So what did my dad do? He joined the Navy. He was in the Navy for a lot of years. And this is true. My dad was. I'm not just making an analogy here. So one of the options, a person can join the military as a means to survive. While they're in there, they learn a trade. Then they can be released years later in a better position. Now, here are the facts of joining the military. 1, it is done voluntary. Except for in times of war, we have the draft, but I'm not talking about the draft, okay? It is done voluntary. Number 2, it is a contract for a certain number of years. When my dad joined the Navy, it was 3 years. Whatever it is now, I don't know, but let's go by what it was then. When my dad was in, it was 3 years. It's a contract. When your time is up, you can choose voluntarily to continue your time, or you can leave. Number 4, you earn money. Number 5, you you receive food, a roof over your head, shelter. They take care of all your needs. You have your needs, your showers, your clothing, your food, all that stuff is met. The next is you are considered property for the contract time and are owned by the government. An example, my father, when he was in the Navy, I can't remember if it was he got sick or he injured himself. I can't remember what it was now. He was just talking to me about this the other day, as a matter of fact. And he received disciplinary action. For what? What was the charge of the disciplinary action? Damaging government property. Because when you are in the service, you are owned, atheists. You don't belong to yourself. You are owned. You are their property. That's exactly what my father was disciplined for. Now let's go over the biblical slavery that was supported. Some types weren't supported, which is what God freed them from. But this is the kind that was supported. Here's the biblical slavery or biblical servanthood, being a manservant. It was done voluntary. It was a contract for a certain number of years, which was 6 in the Bible. Many times they learned a trade to better themselves once their time was up and they left. They earned a wage. They were considered property for the contract, just like in the military. And in exchange for their service, just like in the military, they got food and shelter. They didn't have to worry about nothing. The military is 100%, Mr. Cosmic Skeptic, identical to what the legalized and God-supported servanthood was in biblical times. Which again, they use the English word slave for. But I'm going to use the words that are defined in the Hebrew. Servant. It was voluntary. It was a contract for a certain number of years. They learned a trade. They were paid a wage. They were considered property. Every single one of these on the freaking list is exactly what you will have within the military. In biblical times, it was the economic system that was set up so poor people could survive, just like a poor person today struggling can if he chooses to join the military. In exchange, they are now the government's property. They own them for the length of the contract. In exchange, he will serve the military, does whatever he's told to do, and will receive clothing, food, and room and board. There is absolutely no difference. The second thing it was used for, the economic system that the people set up by the people and for the people, was also known as a bond servant. If somebody owed a debt, they went into somebody's service for 6 years in order to pay the debt off. It was done voluntarily also as a means to pay off his debt. It was never forced upon people except when true slavery was committed in the Bible. That was indeed like America had it. Who committed this kind? The Egyptians. God does not support this. He freed them from it. You see, atheists, this was how the economic system was set up back then. You think they had food stamps, cash assistance, WIC checks, all this crap that they have now to help illegal aliens and everybody else in the United States? They didn't have any of this crap back then. They didn't have any of this. We're talking thousands of years ago, about 5,000 or a little over. This was set up by the people, for the people, as their economic way of getting by. This was their system. This was, as you could say, the welfare system of 5,000 years ago in that region, for that people, for that time. And it was set up by them, for them, and God supported it, and God regulated it. And it is no different than what you will experience in joining the military, as we just went over. On and on and on I could go, showing many scriptures where God regulated it justly. It was not forcing people to go into labor against their will, beating them, and chains and shackles and treating them like an animal, and it was done based on their nationality or skin color. Nope, atheists, not one single bit of that is true. That is not what biblical slavery was. Not one bit. You see, atheists only want to focus on the word slave because it comes from the English language and has been given a meaning based on what happened in America. But that's a straw man and a big fallacy that they commit constantly. And Cosmic Skeptic is the biggest fallacy generator on YouTube, one after the next. He probably dreams of them at night because he commits them so much. You cannot use the definition of an English word based on something that happened to English-speaking people in America, where English-speaking people were born and raised, when we are dealing with Hebrews overseas in a different time who spoke Hebrew and an entirely different situation, entirely different. Entirely different. Everything is different. Oh my God, what a fallacy to commit. Basing your definition on what the English word means, which is based on what happened in a different freaking country. Oh my God, the stupidity. Oh my God, I give up. This has nothing to do with what happened in the United States. Different country, different time, different language, different circumstances, set up entirely different. It was voluntary. Oh, geez. I beg you, atheists, to read the Bible in context and learn something, and stop cherry picking. If you think the way that it was done in the Bible is such an atrocity, then you need to go out and I want you to protest the U.S. military, because it is identical all the way down the line as to exactly what happened and the way it was set up in the Bible. So go protest the Army. Go protest the Navy. Because that's the same thing. You can call it something different. I don't care what you call it. You can call it homegrown tomatoes or microwave pizza. I don't give a damn what you call it. The way the military is set up is identical to how it was set up in the Bible. Until then, good day.